Well, good morning. I'm Pete Najarian, and this is The Take for Market Rebellion on this Wednesday, Hump Day. Everybody's always excited. We get about halfway through the week, and we've had a very interesting start to the week, as a matter of fact. When you look to yesterday, pressure on the market all throughout the entire session. Bell to bell down about 300 points, but within that, there was all kinds of movement. So it was a very interesting day. And again, one of these days where it's the dislocation between the NASDAQ and how the Dow is trading. As a matter of fact, yesterday, NASDAQ finished in the positive. You look at the Dow finished down about 300 points. So extreme differences in terms of what's working, what's not. And we seem to rotate almost daily on which levels and which areas, rather, are actually moving the markets, whether that's to the upside or the downside. So yesterday, what were we seeing? We were seeing a lot of pressure on the industrials. You see names like Boeing that have been so strong, getting a little bit of a push to the downside. It was down about 6% yesterday. Then you look at Raytheon. That was down about 5%. Dow, that was down about 3.25%. You get the idea. So the things that were working, the areas in the marketplace that were working, weren't working yesterday, and those that had actually pulled back, NASDAQ related, were actually moving to the upside. So it's just a flip each and every day. We never know exactly which direction, which is going to be leading us up and down, but it is interesting to watch. And we have had days where actually it's all moved in concert to the same direction. But yesterday certainly stood out because the NASDAQ, when you look at Apple hitting record highs, that was up about 3% or a little bit more. And by the way, up again today. Amazon, record highs. Netflix up about 3.5%. Facebook up about 3%. You get the idea. You still had crude oil still holding around that 38, 39 level. And gold, which is actually had gotten underneath 1,700, recaptured 1,700, and then yesterday up around 17.25, somewhere in that range. So there's a lot going on within the markets themselves, but as I said, bell to bell down about 300 points on the Dow, and a lot of that leadership coming from the industrials. Also getting a little bit of pressure in other areas too. Some of the financials actually moving to the downside as well, and energy. And when we look at some of those energy names that have been absolutely just ripping to the upside, yesterday had a bit of a pullback. You look at the OIH down about 7.5%. We've been talking about the OIH and the delivery from there as well as the XLE to the upside. Well, you're starting to see a little bit of a turn and a little bit of a pullback there. The XLE was down about 3.7%. And within the OIH and a lot of these other names that are the next tier. So we're not talking Chevron and Exxon, but we're talking about Apache, Marathon, Noble, Devon, Oxy. All of those really hit pretty hard yesterday. Now today, it feels kind of quiet right now. And I think part of the reason behind that is it's a Fed day and it seems like it had pulled back a little bit. As a matter of fact, in the first hour of trading, we're about 90 minutes in right now. First hour of trading or so, it felt like almost like going into a holiday almost, because we were seeing volumes that weren't anything close to what we had been seeing. And as a matter of fact, let's hit on those volumes just a little bit. So far, the month of June, we're only a week and a half into the month of June, but so far, averaging 32.2 million contracts per day. Absolutely extraordinary. Now, the year-to-date average, overall, we're looking at 28 million contracts a day, so that says a lot. The last 5 days, we've been over 30 million contracts in each and every one of the last 5 trading sessions. So we started off extremely slow. First couple of days of June, you're kind of scratching your head saying, wow, this doesn't feel right. And then suddenly we see the volume absolutely explode back. Now, influencing the markets a little bit, at least this morning, I think, was Starbucks. And Starbucks just came out with what looked like fairly horrific outlook for the year. And you look at their forward-looking for the year-to-date earnings, well below estimates, not even in the close into the ballpark of where some of the estimates were in the past. So that was something that I think was a little bit alarming. People got a little bit nervous about that. And that certainly added, I think, to some of the negativity that we were seeing today, because we're starting off the day and there's definitely pressure once again on the Dow. And again, it's the same names. You're getting a pretty big push to the downside in the Dow from the industrials, down about 1.5%. A huge push from energy once again, which was down about 3% so far. Financials down a little more than 2%. That's been fluctuating around a little bit because we've actually seen the markets trade anywhere between down a little over 300 points, got all the way back up, only down in the 150, 180 range so far today. But right now, as I look over there, I'm looking at the NASDAQ. The first thing that stuck out to me, it's green. it's up over 0.25%. Actually, it's up more than 0.3% so far. So what's driving that? Before I came on, we were up about 0.5%. So we've eased back a little bit from there. We were up about 52 points. Now we're up about 36 points. But we captured 10,000 for the NASDAQ. That's a record. Absolutely incredible that this run that we've had from the NASDAQ and a lot of those various names. And again, it's a lot broader, a lot wider than just the big five, the power five. We've seen contributions absolutely from the biotech space as well as other areas where we're contributing to what's going on with the NASDAQ and this big push to the upside. And look at the semiconductors. That gives you a great sort of a view from above as well in terms of what's powering a lot of what's going on in the NASDAQ. Look at the SMH. Look at those names, NVIDIA and across the board, AMD. You're just seeing all kinds of different names that are contributing to this today. Now, the leaders right now today, I'm looking at Tesla. Everybody's been talking about Tesla. It's had this unbelievable run to the upside. I believe the last time I saw Tesla, it was over 1,000. Not sure where it is right now. But then you've got Zoom. Then, as I mentioned, you've got AMD. You've got NVIDIA. So there is a lot of contributions to this move to the upside. Where are we seeing some of the laggers, though? You look at the airline. A lot of the names that we're pushing to the upside, airlines, leisure names, hotels, casinos, those kinds of names. I mentioned Starbucks already, but there's some pressure there as well. So there's a lot going on, I think, this morning, early on, in terms of the markets and within the markets, what's really going on beneath. And that's something that really does stand out. I mentioned Apple. Apple at 350. Wow, this thing has been absolute juggernaut to the upside and just continues this powerful move, it seems, each and every day. And we've had a lot of commentary recently about Apple. As a matter of fact, some price targets raised to the upside as well. So that's something that, I think we're all going to have to just really keep an eye on that as well. So we always like to get to this point where we have some unusual option activity. And the unusual that I'm seeing today, it's a combination of a lot of things. It's data, it's analytics, hybrid cloud, all of that. And the company's name is Teradata. Makes a lot of sense, right? TDC. This is a name that's hit before, but it's not a name that's frequently hitting on the unusual option activity to the extent of so many other names. So it feels a little bit newer, and I'm looking, and the stock was trading below 22, jumped all the way up to 22.5 during this process of some of the buying that we're seeing, because the buying has been extraordinary in there. They're buying the June 22.5 calls, so these expire in a week and a half. They bought about 3,500 of those. At the same time, not a spread, they bought about 3,700 of the June 25 calls as well. So the June 22.5 calls, they started off at 55 cents. They went all the way up to over $1.25, and we're trading, last I looked, depending on where that stock is right now, but I've seen them trading as high as $1.40. I've seen the stock up to as high as $22.89, I think is where I saw it. So again, a little bit of caution there because this move has been very, very rapid. Stock moved as much as $1, and those options moving very, very rapidly as well. So just to give you one last point on this stock, just to give you a little reference, when you look at this stock today, just understand this. The volume in the stock itself has been averaging about 1.2 million per day. We're 90 minutes into the day, and they've already traded well over 2 million shares. So there's volume in the stock. There's volume in the options. Certainly does stand out. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be correct, but certainly an area that people have definitely focused on today, and a stock that has not really made a huge recovery off of the lows where it was in the upper teens on the lows. Here today was trading just a little over 21.5, 21.80, something like that. And so there still seems to be some upside. Maybe that's part of what people are looking at. Maybe they feel like there's some catch up that's to be had so for TDC. So that should be pretty interesting. Guys, this is Market Rebellion. Get educated. You have to understand what's going on in the market, and in particular in the options markets. I brought up those volumes. I'm going to continue to bring up these volumes because the volumes that we are seeing are absolutely extraordinary. They're record-breaking. They're unbelievable each and every day to see these volumes. And as I mentioned, on the slow days, those slow days used to be extreme days just a year or so ago. So that gives you a little perspective on just how much activity we are seeing here. And you've got to understand the risk rewards. You've got to understand a lot of the different factors that go into it. I had so many questions hitting me up on Twitter over the last, call it 48, 72 hours, something like that, where one after the other, wanting to know more about the options market. Here's the key. You better have knowledge. You better have an understanding, or the experience likely might not be a very pleasant one. So understand the risk rewards. That's what we're all about, educating people, trying to get them in the right spot. It doesn't guarantee any success, but it certainly does give you an opportunity, I think, for better success if you have a lot more knowledge. Folks, have a great day of trading.